Hi fellow Django developers, Ezekiel here from Always Django, where we discuss interesting Django topics that help you grow, improve as a Django developer. If that sounds interesting, like, subscribe, share this video with anyone you feel will find this video important. Let's get into it. So today we are going to be looking at functional API views in Django Rest Framework, right? So in the last tutorial, we created this simple API view. This is a function API view. We created this API view, and I mentioned that possibly you don't understand what is happening here, and in this video I will explain what is going on, right? So we created this API view. We linked it to this URL path. We opened our url.py file and we used it here, right? So if we on our terminal, if we on our terminal right now, our virtual environment has been activated. As you can see, if you say python manage.py run server, right? If we run our server, and go to the home page, because I suspect that's what we if we go to our root homepage, right? If we go to our root homepage, we are using this API view right here, right? So if you come here, open it, go to the root, you can see this API view right here, and you can see we have message here, everything is working, right? So now to explain this, I'll create a very simple API without Django Rest Framework. I'll create a simple API without Django Rest Framework and with only Django, right? Then explain to us why we need Django Rest Framework, right? So we'll create a very simple API. We'll create a view function in Django. Let's say this would be Django view API, right? Of course, we accept the request, right? So APIs, we are returning JSONs, right? We are returning JSONs, JavaScript, standard object notation, if I'm right. So that's what we are returning, right? If we go to from django.http, we can import JSON response, right? So this JSON response is used like every other response in Django, like the normal, like the HTTP redirect. The JSON response, like its name sound, is used to return a JSON, right? So if we say return JSON, right? We say return JSON right here. So let's create a simple dictionary. Or let's copy what we have here. And let's paste it here, right? Message, everything is working, and let's use it here. Let's say response, right? So let's say response right now, right? So here is a very simple Django API, right? And this will work correctly. So if we copy this, come to our URL, let's import it here, and instead of this text function here, instead of this one, let's use this one we just imported. Let's use this one, right? So we paste it here, right? So if we paste it here and go back, it's refreshing here, and go back and we refresh, you can see we have everything is working, right? And don't mind my UI right here, because I have a Google plugin, if I'm right, a Google extension. I'm using a Google extension right here, and if you want to know the extension, just leave a comment below. I'll answer you and tell you the extension. And I'm using a dark theme right here, right? So you can obviously change it, configure it, and what have you. So this is a very simple API using only Django, right? That's if you are not using Django Rest Framework, right? So why do we use Django Rest Framework, right? Because looking at it right here, we can obviously use Django as our API to build API and return response and what have you. Now, why we use Django Rest Framework is because of what we call serializers, right? And we will look at serializers in the next tutorial. Obviously, there are many reasons, but basically because of serializers, right? So because of serializers, so serializers are like a way to make models, right? You know models in Django. If you don't know about models, again, go and check out Django Absolute Beginner playlist. You will understand those. So Django models, which are like our database classes, classes to represent our database, they are classes, right? So to return them, to return an object of a class during a response, right, is quite difficult, and that's where serializers come in, and those serializers are provided by Django Rest Framework, right? So with serializers, you can change your models into JSON response, right? You can return models and model objects as a response in your API, right? So I understand this might be a lot of information for you right now. I understand that maybe you don't quite get what I'm trying to say, but just stick with me. Subscribe if you have not subscribed. Watch the next couple of videos, and I promise you understand what I'm trying to say, right? So So at this point, what we are going to do is that we're going to do things the right way, right? Not the right way, like per se, but the Django Rest Framework way, right? So, which is obviously this, right? So what we are going to do, let me just cut this out. If I cut this out and push this down, let me push this down, right? So have this here, right? So what are we doing here now? We said API view, right? We said from Rest Framework dot decorators we import API view. Now if we hover over this API view, you can see the description, right? Short definition, right? So picked definition. So decorators, this decorator that converts a function based view into an API subclass takes a list of allowed methods for the view as an argument, right? What I'm trying to say, we say that this function, this decorator right here, right, it converts a function based request view into an API view subclass, right, and takes arguments of allowed methods, right? So this API view is a decorator. If you know about Python decorators, right, they are like methods, or they're like functions that supercharge other functions, if you can say it like that. Enables other functions to do more broader things, right? So what this API view decorator does is that it converts this normal Django view into an API view, right? So these HTTP method names are the method names that this view will be allowed to handle, right? For instance, here we have get, right? We can have post, right? We can have patch, we can have delete, right? So let's say we have post, right? We want to also handle post requests here, right? So like a normal Django, like when you're handling Django forms, let me not say normal Django, this is normal Django. When you handle Django forms, you say if request the method is equal to post, right? If request the method is equal to post, what do we want to do? Let's say we want to return another response, right? Let's just have it here. Let's say the message is, what should we write as the message? They say the message is, this is a post request, as simple as that, right? So how do we test this post request? So in our URLs, if you can remember, we are using this Django views API, so we'll change that to test, right? So test, so that we can be able to use this, right? So that we can be able to use this, right? So how can we be able to test this post request? Obviously Get request is what you do in the browser. You can just copy your URL, go to the browser search button, paste it and press enter, right? That's get request. But post request, we have to make to make post request is either maybe you are submitting a form or something like that. Now to test that, I have a software here, an API testing client right here called Postman, right? So Postman, maybe probably most of us have heard it, but if you have not heard about it, Postman is simply a request testing client, right? Where you can mock API requests, make API requests to endpoints, right? If you make API requests, you can do a lot of things. You can make push requests, make different types of requests, specify our header, specify our body, test and specify parameters, etc. Right? So Postman is very interesting, very interesting, right? And I recommend downloading it. Now to download it, this is the download page for Postman, right? So if you come here, it's saying Windows 64, obviously because I'm using Windows 64 bit, right? So if you're using Mac or another version of Windows or another bit of Windows, what have you, it will change for you and you can download it, right? So I'll leave this link in the description so that you can download Postman. So after downloading Postman, the next thing will be cranking it up and coming over here, right? So if you come here, you will see an interface not very much like this, but similar to this, very much similar to this. Here you can have, here is the endpoint where you want to hit, the endpoint you are hitting. Here is where you specify the request you want to make: get request, post request, put request, patch request, get request, copy, head, options, and I must confess some of them I don't even know them, right? So here you specify the request you want to make, right? For instance, you want to make get request, right? You specify get and specify the endpoint. Now the endpoint, what's the endpoint? The endpoint should be the root of our application, right? So the endpoint should be the root of our application. That's right here, right? Obviously this is a get request, this is a get request. That's why we're saying message everything is working instead of this is a post request, which is what we specified in our code. This is a post request, right? So if we copy this our endpoint right here, if we copy this endpoint right here, go to Postman, paste it, right? Then we change this to, it's not a get request anymore, it is a post request. We change this to post, we make our request. Hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll see this is a post request, right? So this is it for me today, guys. This is how you make functional API views in Django, right? So in the next tutorial, so I have something to say about this response, right? How you can specify your status code using this response method right here, right? So but that will be in the next tutorial, right? So subscribe, like the video, subscribe, like the video, share if you haven't, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.